date is June 6th. And you have a year, but it's not legible. And you have a draft, of course. It says August 11th of August 1955. The draft, but then you have, as you can see if you're watching the video, several areas where there's, censored words. So this is the memorandum for the record. Subject Project MKUltra, Subproject 2, and then something is blotted out before the 2. So 1. Subproject 2, blotted, is being initiated to provide a secure and efficient means of exploiting blotted or censored. I'll just say censored. So censored with regard to the MKUltra program. 2. Censored is a practicing psychiatrist in Censored and a facility member of Censored. He has been of value in the general MKUltra project, serving as an advisor and consultant, contacting individuals in the censored area, and carrying out his own research program. 3. Subproject 2 Censored would include the following: A. Miscellaneous research and testing services in the general field of MKUltra. B. Services as a contact and cutout for projects in the MKUltra field, primarily those located in the censored. C. Monitoring of select projects in the MKUltra field when located in the central censored. D. Services as a general consultant and advisor in the MKUltra field. E. He would act as a medical advisor and consultant to Censored and his censored establishment. 4. Censored will be reimbursed for his services and expenses upon receipt of an invoice at irregular intervals. When travel expenses are incurred through use of a common carrier, they will be documented and reimbursed in the usual manner that is consistent with standard government allowances. And then there are 3 patches of text, of course, that are censored. Underneath the large one on the left-hand side of the page, you have date 6 June 1977, and then you have looks like you have another date right underneath it, but it looks like a scanned copy of a document that's been poorly done. So that's the end of page 115. Page 116. Much cleaner. So you have draft, censored, 2nd October 1953, memorandum for the record, subject project MKUltra, subproject 16. 1. Subproject 16 is a continuation of Subproject 3, which involved the establishment and maintenance of facilities for realistic testing of certain research and development items of interest to CD/TSS and APD/TSS. The facilities were set up under Subproject 3 and Subproject 16. Is intended to provide for the continued maintenance of the facilities. 2. Subproject 3 was originally intended to provide funds for the maintenance of the facilities for 1 year, but it turns out that the cost of alterations, equipment, and initial supplies were underestimated in Subproject 3. Hence the necessity to establish Subproject 16 at this time. 3. Subproject 16 will be conducted by Censored. A. Censored. Certain support activities will be provided by CD/TSS and APD/TSS. 4. The estimated cost for a period of 1 year is $7,740 US dollars. Underneath sentence 4, you have on the right hand side, it looks like a handwritten letter A. You got censored text. Underneath that, you have Sidney Gottlieb, Chief Chemical Division, TSS. Approved for obligation of funds. Underneath there you have censored text, research director, date. I don't know if that's 18, 13, and I'm not sure if that's February. Yeah, but it looks like it says 1953. And then on the left-hand side it says program approved and recommended. Then you have a censored name, research chairman, date. You got, a line through it, probably because it's written on the right-hand side, original only. And then you have top secret and another word underneath, which have both been scratched through. That's page 116, page 117. You have some censored text on this document. Date is May 26, 1953. Going down to the left-hand side. Dear Censored, after our telephone conversation this morning, I went to Censored and opened an account, regular checking, in the amount of $100 using the name Censored. It occurred to me, for the sake of safety, if, for example, should anything happen to me, it would simplify matters if I made this joint account between Censored and Censored. Then, in case of my absence, illness, or death, you could recover the joint funds without any legal difficulties or monkey business. The bank was a little sticky about opening an account in the absence of references from another bank, and also found it hard to understand how Censored got by all these years without a bank account. However, I offered to provide an excellent reference in a government official, a Censored, who is censored, at Censored, and that seemed to placate the moneylenders. Thereafter, I communicated with Censored, and he immediately wrote a reference for Censored on an official stationery. Censored also kindly said he was well acquainted with Censored and pleased to offer him a similar recommendation. If you think this is a good idea, I suggest you sign the joint account agreement and the 3 signature cards enclosed and return them to me. And now that the account is opened, I suggest you have funds deposited via cashier's check or any other way that seems easiest, directly to Censored account. And then you have the letter C handwritten. I ordered checks printed with Censored name. Thereon have also ordered stationery bearing Censored name. I consider this might facilitate payments of oils, etc. by mail. What with suspicious banks, landlords, utility companies, etc., you will understand that creating the Jekyll companies, etc., you will understand that creating, I'm sorry, let me start over. What with suspicious banks, landlords, utility companies, etc., you will understand that creating the Jekyll Hyde personality in the form of Censored is taking a little, quote, doing, end quote. See you Monday, the 8th. RGDS. And then you have censored text. End of page 117, beginning of page 118. Memorandum for the record. Subject, Project MKUltra, Subproject 23. 1. The scope of this project is intended to encompass all those activities now engaged in by the censored, in its own facilities under the direction of CD/DSS. At the present time, the various projects at this facility, censored, censored, and censored are being concluded, and it is deemed desirable from the standpoint of security and efficiency to replace these projects with a single project more general in its approach. 2. The attached proposal from Dr. Censored indicates the extent of the investigations that his facilities will allow him to carry out on the materials developed in the 3 projects referred to in paragraph 1, as well as certain other materials of interest to CD/TSS. Dr. Censored also serves as a general consultant to this division and provides cover and cutout facilities to the agency. 3. The total cost of this project for a period of 1 year will not exceed $42,700. 4. Dr. Censored has been granted a top secret clearance by the agency and is fully capable of protecting the security of the government's interest in such matters as this. Then there's censored text, Chemical Division TSS, approved, censored text, Chief, Chemical Division TSS. From left to right, program approved and recommended, approved for obligation of funds, censored, and it looks like it says executive Res ED. The text is, it's a bit cut out a little bit by the scanner or printer. On the right side, you have a censored name, I assume, and then you have Research Director. Date on the left-hand side says January 28th. I do not know. Handwritten, it may say 1954. I'm not sure. On the right-hand side, it says 25th. I'm not sure what that says, and then it may say 1954 again. So that's the page, that's page 118, now page 119. The present investigation is concerned with chemical agents which are effective in modifying behavior and function of the central nervous system. 1. It is proposed to study a variety of known drugs in this pharmacological class that are in present day use and to synthesize new chemical agents or to modify existing ones as occasion may demand. 2. The various chemical agents investigated or synthesized will be tested on animals to determine their acute and chronic toxicity. Their pharmacological effects will be studied by a variety of assay techniques, ASSAYTECHNICS, such as blood pressure determinations, bronchial dilation recordings, endocrine effects, etc. Complete animal facilities will be maintained for this purpose, and pathologic study will be carried out on the affected organs when the animals are sacrificed. 3. Preliminary clinical investigation will be carried out on more promising chemical agents. And appropriate laboratory procedures will be performed, such as blood counts, urine analysis, etc., to determine the effectiveness and the side reactions of the drugs under investigation. 4. Adequate reports will be submitted of the findings at quarterly intervals. 5. Proposed budget. Personnel: synthetic, organic chemist, $7,500. Research medical associate, $6,500. Pharmacological assistant, $5,500. Chemical assistant, $4,000. Histology technician, $2,400. Clinical technician, $3,600. Chemical consultant, $1,200. Total salaries for personnel, $30,700. Other expenditures, animals, animal maintenance and facilities, $4,000. Chemical and laboratory supplies, expendable, $4,000. Miscellaneous permanent equipment, $2,000. Travel, medical meetings, etc., $2,000. Total other expenditure, $12,000. Total, $42,700. End of page 119, beginning of page 120. From right, then left, and then left to right. Draft, 8 October 1954, memorandum for the record. Subject, increase in the scope of subproject 23, Project MKUltra. 1. Due to a considerable increase in the scope of work undertaken by censored at the direction of TSS/CD under subproject 23, Project MKUltra, the $42,700 sum originally obligated for this work is insufficient to cover the year's costs. It is therefore proposed to add $15,000 to that already obligated under this subproject. The total cost of this subproject for the period 28 January 1954 to 28 January 1955 will thus amount to $57,700. 3. The increase in scope responsibility for this proposal consists of the development and partial financing of 2 new sources of biologically active compounds of interest and in the program TSS/CD is carrying out. From right to left, and then left to right. You have a censored name, Chemical Division TSS, approved for obligation of funds, censored name, Research Director, approved, and then you have the signature here for the Chief, Chemical Division TSS, date, might be October 11, 1954, I'm not sure. Original only, 1, you have some censored words, and then 2, you have something that's censored. And then you have some cursive writing, but some of the text is not legible. The additional, and then difficult to read. That's end of page 120, beginning of page 121. 25th August 1955. Memorandum for the record. Subject, authorization for payment of certain expenses under Project MKUltra Subproject 23. 1. In order to carry on the work of the above subproject, it was necessary to test the effects of certain chemical substances when administered to human beings. Certain of the anticipated effects involved mental fluctuations which precluded the use of mental defectives for this particular study. 2. In view of these circumstances, the project engineer, with verbal approval from his chief, authorized the contractor to pay the hospital expenses of certain persons suffering from incurable cancer for the privilege of studying the effects of these chemicals during their terminal illnesses. The total funds expended in this fashion amounted to $658.05, and full value was received. 3. It is requested that the Chief TSS indicate his knowledge and approval of this particular expenditure for audit purposes. You have a censored name, TSS Chemical Division, approved, another censored name, and you even have a censored title, and then you have Chief Common TSS, and then you have another name which is, I'm not sure, and then there, if you can read cursive, you can maybe know what that says. Chief TSS / Chemical Division. Distribution, original TSS / CD, August 31st, 1955. And then you have a censored word underneath. The end of page 121, beginning of page 122. 21st December 1954, Memorandum for Director of Central Intelligence, subject. Project MKUltra, Subproject 35. 1. While the Director's statutory authority to expend funds for confidential purposes is not limited by law, we believe that a gift of government funds such would exceed the intent of Congress in granting that power. However, where a gift is made for the express purpose of producing something of value to this agency which cannot otherwise be obtained, and there is a reasonable expectation that the value may be received, the gift may in effect be an expenditure for proper official purposes. 2. In Subproject 35, it is stated that the donation in question would achieve certain ends by TSS. There seems to be no question that those ends would be advantageous, so the main questions appear to be whether they could not be attained by more direct, normal methods, and if not, whether the return is necessary and reasonable in relation to the donation. 3. We are in no position to review the requirements of TSS or to appraise the advantages that would result from this project. We do not comment therefore on the value received if the project results in the benefits foreseen. We feel we should comment on factors affecting the probability of achieving those ends. In a legal sense, there is little or no control. Once the funds are donated, the individual, his foundation, or the hospital could conceivably refuse to work for us or allow us the use of the facilities. 4. Practically, the control seems to establish as well as circumstances permit. Certainly, as long as the individual is alive and in his present position, we have every reason to expect his complete cooperation in the future, as in the past, unless through some act or fault of our own he is alienated. Even in the event of his death or incapacity, there appears to be a reasonable it might be cut off, but to the left-hand side it says downgraded to, and then confidential, by authority of 187475, date June 1977. You have a letter or word there, and then it says, looks like it says import. I'm not sure if that says CL, what those letters are, but then it says by 187475. That's page 122, and now page 123. Chance of continuing the project. If these probabilities appear sufficient to obtain an adequate return for the expenditure, there can be no legal objection to this aspect of the project. 5. It should be noted that there are two circumstances which require consideration in final determination. As stated in Section 5, our contribution, by appearing to be from a private source, would increase the matching government contribution by a similar amount, which would not be the case if it were known that this was in fact a government contribution also. Secondly, it is the stated policy of the hospital to charge the government and commercial organizations 80% overhead on research contracts, where non-profit foundations pay only direct costs but no overhead. Because of this ostensible source, our projects will not be charged overhead. This could be construed as morally wrongful to the hospital, as normally we would pay the 80% overhead charge for projects performed directly for us. But I believe this can be offset, at least to the amount of our donation, and perhaps by the further amount by which the other government contributions are increased by our donation. In any case, if the project is a proper one and must be performed in this manner, security dictates these circumstances, and they therefore do not present a legal obstacle as such. 6. We raise the question whether funds for the hospital construction could not be obtained from other normal charitable sources. It appears that there was a strong possibility that the individual concerned could raise adequate funds from private resources. But it was the position of TSS that if this were the case, we would not obtain the commitment from the individual and the degrees of control which this project is designed to achieve. And then it is signed Lawrence R. Houston, General Counsel. Downgraded to looks like confidential. Authority of 187475. And then there's a date. I can't quite read that. But the year is 1977. The month might be June. And then it looks like there's a number. It might say number, and then, but I'm not sure what this says. Downgraded to, might say confidential again, by the authority of 187475, date June 1977. I'm not sure if that says E or F, 2, IMPDET, CL by 187475. Copy number 1 of 1 copy. End of page 123, beginning of page 124. You have a censored word on the top, and then you have -H. 8 April 1955, memorandum for Chief DD/P/TSS. Subject: amendment to subproject 35 of Project MKULTRA. We have noted your memorandum of 6 April 1955 to the Director requesting an increase of $250,000 for the TSS F&D budget for this project. This request does not affect in any way the comments in my memorandum of 21 December 1954. And then you've got a substantial block of text censored, and then underneath you have General Counsel. Downgraded to confidential by authority of 187475, date June 1977. I'm not sure. It says F2, but it says IMPDET, CL by 187475, copy number 1 of 1 copy. And that's the end of page 124, beginning of page 125. Draft, censored, May 5th, 1955. A portion of the Research and Development Program of TSS/Chemical Division is devoted to the discovery of the following materials and methods. 1. Substances which will promote illogical thinking and impulsiveness to the point where the recipient would be discredited in public. 2. Substances which increase the efficiency of mentation and perception. 3. Materials which will prevent or counteract the intoxicating effects of alcohol. 4. Materials which will promote the intoxicating effect of alcohol. Excuse me, let me read number 3 again. Number 3 says, materials which will prevent or counteract the intoxicating effect of alcohol. Now skipping down to 5. Materials which will produce the signs and symptoms of recognized diseases in a reversible way so that they may be used for malingering, etc. 6. Materials which will render the induction of hypnosis easier or otherwise enhance its usefulness. 7. Substances which will enhance the ability of individuals to withstand privation, torture, and coercion during interrogation and so-called, quote, brainwashing, end quote. 8. Materials and physical methods which will produce amnesia for events preceding and during their use. 9. Physical methods of producing shock and confusion over extended periods of time and capable of surreptitious use. 10. Substances which produce physical disablement such as paralysis of the legs, acute anemia, etc. So downgraded to censored by authority of 187475, date June 1977. And this is a bit unreadable. L letter illegible. CL by 187475. And then a lot of this is illegible. Downgraded to, it's not really legible. And this is page 125. Now to page 126. Number 11. A substance which will produce, quote, pure, end quote, euphoria with no subsequent letdown. 12. Substances which alter personality structure in such a way that the tendency of the recipient to become dependent upon another person is enhanced. 13. A material which will cause mental confusion of such a type that the individual under its influence will find it difficult to maintain a fabrication under questioning. 14. Substances which will lower the ambition and general working efficiency of men when administered in undetectable amounts. 15. Substances which promotes weakness or distortion of the eyesight or hearing faculties, preferably without permanent effects. 16. A knockout pill which can surreptitiously be administered in drinks, food, cigarettes, as an aerosol, etc. One moment. I apologize for the phone call. I'm going to start from page 16 and work my way down. A knockout pill, I'm going to start from 15. A substance which promotes weakness or distortion of eyesight or hearing faculties, preferably without permanent effects. 16. A knockout pill which can surreptitiously be administered in in drinks, food, cigarettes, as an aerosol, etc., which will be safe to use, provide a maximum of amnesia, and be suitable for uses by agent types on an ad hoc basis. 17. A material which can be surreptitiously administered by the above routes, and which in very small amounts will make it impossible for a man to perform any physical activity whatsoever. The development of materials of this type follows the standard practice of such ethical drug houses as censored. It is a relatively routine procedure to develop a drug to the point of human testing. Ordinarily, the drug houses depend upon the services of private physicians for the final clinical testing. The physicians are willing to assume the responsibility of such tests in order to advance the science of medicines. It is difficult and sometimes impossible for TSS/CD to offer such an inducement with respect to its products. In practice, it has been possible to use outside cleared contractors for preliminary phases of this work. However, that part which involves human testing at effective dose levels presents security problems which cannot be handled by the ordinary contractor. Downgraded to censored by the authority of 187475, date June 1977. It is not very legible, but second word looks like it says IMPDET. Or that's what it might be. CL by 187475. That is the page of 126, now page 127. The proposed facility, censored, offers a unique opportunity for secure handling of such clinical testing, in addition to the many advantages outlined in the project's proposal. The security problems mentioned above are eliminated by the fact that the responsibility for the testing will rest completely upon the physicians and the hospital. Censored will allow TSS/ I'm not sure, it could be CD. It's not clear because of a strange symbol. Personnel to supervise the work very closely to make sure that all tests are conducted according to the recognized practices and embody accurate safeguards. and a lot of this is illegible. I'm just going to skip it over. So that is page 127, beginning of page 128. May 10, 1955, Subproject 35 of Project MKUltra. 1. Subproject as approved by the DCI on 15 January 1955 contemplated a financial contribution of $125,000 to the censored to participate in the construction of a new research wing to cost $3 million, exclusive of furnishings and equipment. Agency funds will be transmitted through the censored as cutout, which will result in 1/6 of the space in the new research wing being made available for agency-sponsored research involving covert biological and chemical techniques of warfare. 2. At that time, 15 January 1955, censored with the CIA encouragement indicated a willingness to contribute $500,000 to the construction fund. The building fund was to have been raised as follows: $1 million contributed by censored, $250,000 donation from censored, of which $125,000 to be supplied by CIA, $1,250,000 matching funds under Public Law 221, equal to the amount of the two above contributions. $500,000 censored. $3 million total. 3. Since it now appears that the expected contribution by censored will not be forthcoming, permission is requested to increase the agency's contribution by $250,000, which will result in a financial situation as follows: $1 million contributed by censored, $500,000 donation from censored, including $375,000 supplied by CIA, $1,500,000 matching funds under Public Law 221 equal to the amount of the two above contributions. $3 million total. 4. The agency's contributions would thus total $375,000. This investment, together with the equal sum resulting from matched funds, is fully justified in the opinion of TSS for reasons which will be explained by censored, Chief TSS, and Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, Chief TSS/Chemical Division. The scope of Subproject 35 has not changed since the Director originally approved a request by TSS for permission to spend $125,000 of available, and then the text ends there. You just have cursive handwriting, which scrubbed together, difficult to read. So that's the end of page 128. Now beginning page 129. You have censored funds for this purpose through the controls and procedures established for MKUltra. At the time, Subproject 35 was set up within the scope of the TSS R&D program. Security considerations and arrangements were carefully reviewed, and the Office of General Counsel assisted in legal determinations. With the exception of funding arrangements, no change in the program has since been made. 5. Funds to cover the previous approved sum of $125,000 are available within the TSS censored budget for FY55 and have been set aside. The TSS budget, however, lacks funds with which to cover the supplemental sum of $250,000, and it is requested that the TSS censored budget be increased by this amount. Supplementary funds available for Subproject 35 can definitely be obligated by the end of FY 55. End of page 129. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Let me see. It says, downgraded to censored by authority of 187475. Date, June 1977. You got some letters, some illegible letters. It might say IMPDET CL by 187475, and then over here by the number 2. I'm not sure if that's a word or if that's just ink print. So that's the end of page 129. Now beginning page 130. Another censored bit of text. Amendment to Subproject 35, Project MKUltra, for the purpose of establishing a cover organization for highly sensitive projects in the field of biological, chemical, and radiological warfare. 1. Background of Subproject 35. In January 1955, approval was given by the DCI to Subproject 35 of Project MKUltra. The documents which led to this approval, including the comments of the OGC, are attached herewith as tabs 2A and 3. Project MKUltra is the framework of procedures and controls under which research projects in certain highly sensitive fields are carried out by TSS. A description of the background of Project MKUltra may be found on page 1 of tab A. Subproject 35 establishes cover under which the chemical division of DD/P/TSS would conduct certain sensitive projects in the fields of biological and chemical warfare, and consists of a proposed arrangement whereby the agency covertly contributes funds to assist the censored in the construction of a new research wing. Contribution of these funds is to be made through the censored as cut out, so that the censored would remain unwitting of agency participation in the building program. Projects would later be carried out by the chemical division using the facilities of the new research wing, and agency employees would be able to participate in the working without the university or hospital authorities being aware of agency interest. Subproject 35 contemplated the contribution of agency funds to assist in the construction of facilities. Future research work would be carried out through the censored as cut out and would be separately funded under existing procedures and controls. 2. Building fund. The university will require $3 million for the 6-story addition to the hospital, exclusive of the cost of land, heating, and power supply, which are being provided by the university under Public Law 221 sub-appropriation. I'm going to skip over that part. So that's the end of page 130, page 131. Excuse me, I'm going to go back. I'll go back. So some of the text is cut out, but it looks like a repeat of some of that ending text on most of the pages, where, it says downgraded for censored, and that's what it might be, say, by authority of 187475, date June 1977, the lettering, I'm not sure, IMPDET, I'm not sure what the lettering is. It's by the same number, 187475. And that is the end of page 130, beginning of page 131. One moment. Beginning page 131. Censored text on the right-hand side, 663, dated 26 August 1954. Funds are available to match funds raised for this purpose by the university. When Subproject 35 was first prepared, it was hoped and expected that the funds required would be provided as follows. The university has allocated $1 million to do this project and will assume upkeep and staffing obligations. Censored agreed that if the agency would provide Censored with a grant of $125,000, the fund would match this amount and make a total donation of $250,000 to the university building fund. At that time, discussions with Censored indicated that Censored would contribute $500,000 to the building project on the basis that radiological research will be conducted in the new wing and that the construction of the new facilities was of the interest to that agency. In summary, the financial situation was to have been as follows. $1 million from Censored, $250,000. Donation from Censored, of which $125,000 was supplied by the CIA. $1,250,000 matched funds under Public Law 221. $500,000 Censored. $3 million total. It was recognized that the federal contribution of $1,250,000 under Public Law 221 would be seemingly inflated by reason of the inclusion of the CIA contribution in that of Censored. It was felt that the value to the agency was such that this inflation of the federal contribution was more than justified by the importance of the overall project, and that, furthermore, the inclusion of the CIA contribution in that of Censored was the best means of maintaining security. Section 3. Censored. The original informal commitment on the part of Censored was first obtained through verbal discourse with Censored, which were followed up by an exchange of correspondence between the DCI and Censored. Unfortunately, at that time, Censored was fully occupied with the controversy concerning the Censored, and continued contact with Censored subordinates resulted in a decision that Censored could not or would not contribute to the building fund, but would be willing to support an annual research program amounting to $50,000 to $75,000. It is not, end of page 131, beginning of page 132, known whether this change in policy was suggested to Censored or whether it originated with him. Be that as it may, when the change in policy became apparent, it was evident that additional funds would be required to complete the hospital construction. Section 4. Suggested funding. It is now suggested that $3 million required for the hospital wing be provided as follows. $1 million Censored. $500,000 donation from Censored, including $375,000 supplied by the CIA. $1,500,000 matched funds from Public Law 221. $3 million total. The donation from Censored would thus consist of the original $125,000 to be supplied by the CIA plus the sum of $125,000 to be provided by the fund and a supplemental CIA contribution of $250,000. Originally, Subproject 35 requested permission to make a contribution of $125,000 to the building fund and approval was given. This approval is enclosed but herewith as tab 2. The purpose of this amendment to subproject 35 is to request permission to contribute an additional $250,000 to the project construction fund through censored. It should be noted that the total government contribution to the hospital fund still remains unchanged at $1,875,000. The increase in size of the contribution by the fund is not out of keeping with other operations of censored and will not arouse undue comment because of its magnitude. The originally approved contribution has not yet been transmitted to censored, and neither the original contribution nor the supplement would be paid to censored until funds adequate to complete the project are made available. This was specified by the DCI in approving the original contribution. Section 5. Source of CIA funds. Funds to cover the initially approved sum of $125,000 are available and have been segregated for this purpose within the TSS FY 1955 budget for research and development. Insufficient funds remain in the TSS budget to cover the supplementary sum of $250,000, and it is therefore requested that TSS budget be increased by this amount, and that the increase be made available to subproject 35 of Project MKULTRA. End of page 132. Beginning of page 133. And I will stop there for this recording.